Who was the resident who operated like a battlefield surgeon? That was the question, whispered through Cedar Gate Medical Center on the rainiest night Tacoma had seen all year. A young man was dying on the table. The attending surgeon had frozen. Blood filled the suction canisters. The monitors screamed like sirens in a war zone. Then she stepped forward. Dr. Claire Warren was supposed to be invisible, just another first-year resident with tired eyes and a thin file. But her hands moved with the calm of someone who had saved lives under fire and buried the cost afterward. If you've ever been judged by your past, this story will hit differently. Stay until the end, because some wounds don't destroy us. They reveal who we really are. Like the video and comment where you're watching from. The question did not begin in the operating room. It had been following Dr. Claire Warren for 8 weeks, long before the monitors screamed, before the attending surgeon froze, before blood covered her gloves, and every face in Trauma OR3 turned toward her in disbelief. Claire had walked through the front doors of Cedar Gate Medical Center with a duffel bag over one shoulder and rainwater dripping from the ends of her hair. Tacoma was gray that morning. Not storm gray, not yet. Just the kind of low, wet sky that made the whole city look like it was holding its breath. The hospital rose at the edge of downtown glass and concrete pressed against a view of the port, the bay, and the distant dark shape of Mount Rainier hiding behind clouds. Ambulances moved in and out of the emergency entrance with their lights flashing silently through the rain. Nurses in soaked jackets hurried across the drop-off lane. A man in a wheelchair smoked beneath a covered walkway while an older woman beside him cried into a paper cup of coffee. Claire stood across the street and watched it all. Hospitals had a sound. Every one of them. Cedar Gate had its own rhythm of pulse beneath the weather. Automatic doors sighed open and closed. Gurney wheels rattled over uneven pavement. Somewhere inside, someone laughed too loudly because the alternative was falling apart. Claire knew that sound. She had missed it. She hated that she had missed it. A bus hissed to a stop behind her. The brakes released with a sound that was too much like pressure leaving a chest wound, and her fingers tightened around the strap of her bag. For 1 second, the rain was not rain. It was dust. The traffic was not traffic. It was rotor wash. The smell of wet asphalt bent into the smell of diesel-burned plastic iodine and hot blood. She blinked once. Tacoma returned. She crossed the street. Inside the lobby was too bright. Clean floors, polished signs, a coffee kiosk near the elevators, a security desk with a bored guard watching a small bank of monitors. No sandbags, no blast walls, no soldiers carrying rifles outside the surgical tent. Just a hospital. Just another place where people came when their bodies betrayed them. Claire gave her name at the front desk. Dr. Claire Warren, she said. The guard looked at his tablet, found her badge, and slid it across the counter. New resident. Yes. He smiled without looking up. Good luck. Claire clipped the badge to her scrub jacket. The picture on it looked like a woman she almost recognized. Dark hair pulled back, pale face, calm eyes. A name that was legal enough to survive a background check and hollow enough to let her breathe. Claire Warren. She had practiced answering to it until the sound stopped hurting. The residency office sat on the 7th floor behind a door with frosted glass and a plant that had given up months ago. Linda Morales, the program coordinator, was waiting with a tablet, 3 folders, and the expression of someone who had already decided this appointment would be a problem. Linda was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, tired, and practical in the way only hospital administrators became after years of watching brilliant doctors lose their keys, miss deadlines, and forget that human beings needed sleep. She looked Claire over once. "You're Dr. Warren?" Claire nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Linda's eyebrows lifted slightly at the ma'am, but she did not comment. She turned her attention to the file. You're older than most of the incoming class. I took a longer road. That's one way to put it. Linda scrolled down the page. The room was small enough that Claire could hear the faint drag of her fingernail against the tablet screen. Graduated from North Valley Medical College. Rotations completed at rural community sites. No publications, no fellowship track. No major surgical research. 2-year gap after graduation. Claire kept her hands folded loosely in her lap. Linda looked up. You understand how competitive this program is? Yes. You also understand that your application was not at the top of the stack. Yes. That answer seemed to irritate Linda more than an excuse would have. One of our residents withdrew 3 days ago. Family emergency. We had a funded position no time, and your paperwork cleared faster than anyone else's. Claire said nothing. Linda leaned back. Most people would say, "Thank you." Claire let the silence settle between them before answering. I won't make you regret it. For the first time, Linda studied her without looking at the file. There were things people noticed if they knew where to look. Claire had learned that silence could protect a person, but it could also reveal discipline. She sat too still. She answered too little. She did not fidget, did not smile to soften the room, did not rush to be liked. Linda tapped the tablet off. Orientation starts at 9. Badge access will activate by noon. You'll be assigned to surgical service under Dr. Ethan Rowe for the first block. Call room is on 4. Locker is in the resident lounge. Claire stood. Linda handed her a packet of forms. And Dr. Warren. Claire paused with her hand on the door. This hospital eats people who think they can disappear. Claire looked back. Then I'll try not to take up much space. She left before Linda could answer. The orientation auditorium smelled of coffee, new paper, and nervous ambition. 27 residents sat scattered through the rows, most of them young enough to still look surprised by their own white coats. They spoke in quick bursts, trading medical school names and exam scores, laughing in that bright way people laughed when they were afraid of being ordinary. Claire chose a seat near the back aisle. A tall resident with blonde hair and expensive shoes turned around. Hey, you're surgery too, right? Claire nodded. Claire Warren. Trevor Ames. Stanford. Well, Stanford for undergrad. Med school at Michigan. You North Valley. He waited, expecting more. When none came, his smile thinned. Cool. He turned away. That was how it began. Not with cruelty, not with rejection, just with a small failure of curiosity. Claire did not offer pieces of herself, and people eventually stopped reaching for them. By lunch, the residents had formed their first loose groups. The confident ones found each other first. The funny ones created a table near the windows. The anxious ones gathered around anyone who seemed to know where to go. Claire ate an apple in the hallway near a vending machine and read through the hospital emergency protocols. At 1 o'clock, Dr. Nathaniel Cross entered the auditorium. The room changed before he spoke. He was tall, late 50s, with silver at his temples and a face cut by years of sleepless nights. His suit fit well, but he wore it like a uniform he had not asked for. He did not carry notes. He did not need them. He stood at the front, placed both hands on the podium, and looked at the new residents one by one. Welcome to Cedar Gate. No one moved. You were chosen because someone believed you could survive this place. That belief may have been accurate. It may not have been. You'll find out soon. A few nervous laughs rose and died quickly. Cross continued. Surgery is not theater. It is not a performance for praise, and it is not a place where ego belongs. Ego makes people slow. Ego makes people defensive. Ego gets patients killed. Claire stared at the floor. His voice was calm, almost quiet, but it reached every corner of the room. You will be tired. You will be corrected. You will be humbled in front of people you hope to impress. Good. Humility is not humiliation. Humility is the door Skill walks through. He moved from behind the podium. In this hospital, you earn trust by being useful when usefulness costs you something. You earn respect by telling the truth before the lie becomes fatal. You earn a place in my operating rooms by knowing the difference between courage and recklessness. His eyes passed over the room. Then they stopped, only for a breath. On Claire. She felt it land like pressure between her shoulder blades. She did not look up. That was the mistake. A person with nothing to hide would have met his gaze and moved on. Claire lowered her eyes too quickly, and Cross noticed the flinch she tried to bury. He resumed speaking, but he remembered her. The first weeks blurred into exhaustion. Claire liked exhaustion. Exhaustion was clean. It left no room for memory. She took every overnight shift offered. She volunteered for post-surgical checks, wound changes, family updates, transport calls, and the kind of paperwork residents complained about in dramatic whispers. She stayed late when others disappeared to sleep. She arrived early before anyone had finished their coffee. In the emergency department, she stood back unless called. On rounds, she gave short presentations with only the facts. In the operating room, she anticipated instruments before the attending asked, but never so early that anyone would notice. She tied knots slower than she could. She asked questions she already knew the answers to. She missed easy things on purpose, sometimes small harmless things enough to look like someone still learning. It was harder than being excellent. One night, Dr. Rowe corrected her in front of the team for placing a drain stitch in a way he did not prefer. Claire apologized, removed it, and placed it again exactly as he asked. Trevor Ames smirked from the corner. Later, in the resident lounge, he said, "You're really calm when Rowe goes after you." Claire poured burned coffee into a paper cup. "He wasn't going after me. He made you redo a perfect stitch." Claire looked at him. It was his room. Trevor laughed once, uncertain whether she was joking. She was not. The name started during the third week. The Ghost. A nurse said it first near the supply closet after Claire appeared with a requested central line kit before anyone had sent her to get it. "God, Warren, you move like a ghost." By Friday, everyone used it. Ask the ghost, she knows where the trauma shears are. Did the ghost take night call again? Does the ghost ever sleep? Claire heard it and felt nothing. Ghosts were safe. Ghosts passed through rooms without being held. Ghosts had no history unless someone went looking. Her call room on the 4th floor became the only place she allowed herself to loosen. It was barely a room, a bed with a thin mattress, a locker, a wall clock that ticked too loudly, a small window overlooking the ambulance bay. The view was mostly rain headlights and the soft glow of the hospital sign reflected in puddles. She unpacked slowly on her first night there, scrubs into the locker, toothbrush on the sink, socks rolled into a plastic drawer, field watch on the bedside table. The metal case stayed in the duffel until the room went quiet. Claire pulled it out with both hands. It was old, dented at one corner, wrapped in an army green shirt, faded almost gray. She set it on the bed and stared at it. Her thumb found the latch. A siren rose below the window. She let go. The case remained closed. At the bottom of the bag, under a folded sweatshirt, was a photograph turned face down. She did not touch it. She already knew every face in it. The dust on their cheeks, the exhausted smiles, the surgical tent behind them, the man beside her with his arm in a sling, the young medic holding up 2 fingers behind her head, because even in hell someone always found a way to be stupid and alive. She pushed the photograph deeper into the bag. Then she lay on the bed, fully clothed, shoes still on, and watched the ceiling until the alarm on her phone told her to get up. Sleep came in pieces. When it came badly, she woke with her hand reaching for a weapon she no longer carried. A helicopter passed over the hospital one rainy evening during her 5th week. It was only a news chopper crossing toward the port, but the sound rolled low through the window glass. Claire was in the stairwell between the 3rd and 4th floors carrying a stack of charts. Her body reacted before her mind could stop it. She crouched. The charts hit the floor. Her breath vanished. For 3 seconds, she was back under canvas, with dust shaking from the lights and someone screaming for more gauze. The stairwell door opened above her. Nurse Maya Ellison stepped in, stopped, and looked down. Maya had worked trauma for 15 years. She had seen panic in every shape. Drunk panic, grief panic, pain panic, new doctor panic. This was different. Claire gathered the charts too quickly. I slipped. Maya did not contradict her. Instead, she came down, picked up the last folder, and handed it over. "Wet floors are dangerous." Claire took it. "Thank you." Maya held her gaze a moment longer. "You eat today?" Claire almost smiled. "That a nursing order?" "That's a human question." Claire looked away first. "I'll get something." Maya nodded and let her go. After that, Maya watched her with a softer kind of attention. Not suspicion. Recognition. Dr. Cross watched differently. He saw patterns. Claire signed up for every trauma simulation but never tried to lead. When residents debated procedures, she let them speak, then quietly corrected the thing that mattered most. During morbidity review, she never defended herself. During real emergencies, she became still in a way that made the air around her seem less chaotic. In surgery, her restraint bothered him more than talent would have. Talent showed off when it was young. Talent wanted witnesses. Claire hid hers like contraband. On a Thursday night near midnight, Cross found her in the skills lab. The room was supposed to be empty. Fluorescent lights hummed above rows of surgical models, suture pads, plastic vessels, airway mannequins, laparoscopic trainers, and old monitors used for practice drills. Outside the windows, rain moved sideways across the dark glass. Claire stood at a table near the back. She had built herself a field problem. A synthetic artery buried under layers of gauze and tubing. Limited visibility. One overhead light turned away. A timer running on her phone. Her left hand held pressure while her right worked a needle through the vessel wall with controlled speed. Cross stayed at the door. He watched her complete the repair, tie the knot, one-handed release pressure, inspect the seal, and stop the timer. 84 seconds. Claire exhaled once. "Most residents practice skin closure at this hour," Cross said. Her shoulders did not jump. That interested him. She had heard him come in. She turned the phone face down. "I couldn't sleep." Cross walked into the room. "That explains why you're awake. It doesn't explain why you're repairing a simulated femoral artery in the dark." Claire began cleaning the station. "It helps with focus." "Does it?" "Yes, sir." He stood on the other side of the table close enough to see the knots. They were beautiful. Not pretty. Functional. Fast. Minimal. The kind of work that came from repetition under conditions no training lab could create. "Where did you learn that technique?" Claire dropped the used suture into a tray. "Medical school." "Which instructor?" "I had several. Names." She looked at him then. Her face was calm, but there was a warning in her eyes. Not anger, not fear exactly. Something older than both. "Does it matter?" Cross rested one hand on the back of a chair. "It matters if I have a resident with advanced trauma skills and no record explaining them." Claire wiped the table with a disinfectant cloth. "I practice a lot." "No. You maintain readiness." The words hit the room with more force than he expected. Claire went still. Cross noticed that too. He lowered his voice. "Dr. Warren, I'm not accusing you of anything." Her answer came softly. "Not yet." For the first time, Cross felt the conversation turn. Not away from him, but past him toward something he could not see. What are you afraid I'll find? Claire folded the cloth once, twice, and placed it in the trash. People usually find what they're looking for. And what do you think I'm looking for? A reason not to trust me. Cross studied her face. The overhead light cut shadows beneath her eyes. She looked older than her file. Not by years, by damage. I need to trust the people in my operating rooms. I know. Then help me. Claire's jaw tightened. For a moment he thought she might. Her mouth opened slightly. A confession almost entered the room. Then the hospital intercom crackled in the hallway. A transport request, a code status update. Ordinary hospital noise. The moment closed. Claire picked up her badge and phone. I should get back. Cross stepped aside. She passed him without another word. At the door he said, Dr. Warren. She stopped. You're too controlled. She did not turn around. In surgery, that's usually considered good. In war, maybe. The word hung between them. Claire's fingers curled around the doorframe. Then she left. Cross remained in the skills lab long after her footsteps disappeared. He looked down at the repaired vessel model. The work was not resident work. It was not even polished academic work. It was survival work. Efficient, unsuitable for applause. Made by hands that had learned the body as an emergency, not a lesson. He returned to his office and opened her file again. Claire Warren, North Valley Medical College. Community rotations. Unremarkable evaluations written in bland language. 2-year gap. Address history incomplete but legal. References acceptable but distant. No military service listed. A life with all the edges sanded down. Too smooth. Downstairs, Claire walked through the surgical ward with her hands in her coat pockets. Her heart had not slowed. She had known this might happen. Someone always noticed eventually. Some people saw scars even when the skin was intact. She entered an empty supply room and closed the door behind her. For a few seconds, she let the mask slip. Her breath shook. Her hands trembled, not from fear of Cross exactly, but from the old instinct to run before a locked door became a cell. She pulled out her phone. 3 saved contacts. Linda Morales. Cedar Gate paging. Jack. Her brother's name sat on the screen like a wound she had refused to clean. She had not heard his voice in nearly 3 years. Not truly. Once 6 months earlier, he had left a message from a number she did not recognize. Allie, if this is still your phone, Mom's asking about you again. I told her you were working. I don't know why I keep lying for you. Just call. Please. She had listened to it in a motel bathroom outside Boise with the shower running so no one could hear her cry. Now her thumb hovered over his name. The supply room smelled of alcohol wipes and cardboard. Outside, wheels moved down the hall. Someone laughed near the nurse's station. A patient coughed behind a curtain. Claire imagined Jack answering. She imagined saying, I'm in Tacoma. She imagined saying, I think someone knows. She imagined the pause before he asked the question he had every right to ask. When are you coming home? Claire locked the phone and put it away. Not yet, she whispered. The words sounded weaker than they used to. During morning rounds, Dr. Rowe assigned her to routine post-operative checks and chart updates. Claire accepted without complaint. She examined wounds, adjusted pain medication, answered family questions, and stood at the edge of rooms while younger residents fought to impress. Rowe was a good surgeon on ordinary days. Everyone knew that. He had steady hands, a sharp memory, and enough charm to make patients feel safe. But Claire had seen the space behind his confidence. The small pause before high-risk decisions. The way his voice tightened when blood pressure dropped too fast. The way he glanced at monitors as if they might accuse him. She did not judge him for it. Every doctor carried a room they could not forget. Rose was just closer to the surface than he wanted anyone to know. That afternoon, Claire assisted on a routine gallbladder removal. She spoke only when spoken to. She passed instruments before Roe asked, then slowed herself after his eyes narrowed. She let Trevor close, though his knots were loose and clumsy. She said nothing when Roe praised him. Later in the locker room, Trevor leaned against the bench and grinned. "You ever get tired of acting like you don't care?" Claire pulled off her scrub cap. "No. That was a joke. I know. You're hard to talk to. I've been told." He watched her for a second. "People think you're weird." Claire opened her locker. "People are allowed." Trevor laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "See that? That right there. It's like you're not even trying to be one of us." Claire took out a clean scrub top and closed the locker softly. "I'm trying to be useful." Trevor shook his head. "Good luck with that." She left him there. Useful was enough. Useful had always been enough when the tent was full and the wounded kept coming. Nobody asked if the surgeon was friendly when hands were holding pressure over an open artery. Nobody cared if you made small talk when a 19-year-old was choking on his own blood. You were either useful or you were in the way. By the end of the 8th week, Claire had built a life small enough to carry. Hospital, call room, cafeteria coffee, night shifts, silence. She moved through Cedar Gate like a shadow with credentials. Then the crane collapse came in. Rain hammered the ambulance bay. Trauma pagers sounded across the building. A young construction worker arrived, pale, crushed, bleeding into places no one could reach fast enough. Roe took the case. Claire stood at the edge of the room. Cross watched from above. Everything that Claire had buried inside herself rose to the surface in 40 seconds of blood and muscle memory. When it was over, the patient lived. The room stared. Claire walked out before they could turn gratitude into questions. She made it to the 4th-floor stairwell before the shaking started. Her back hit the wall. Her lungs locked. The fluorescent lights above her buzzed with a sound too close to bad wiring in a field hospital. She pressed both palms against her thighs and counted her breath down the way she had been taught. 4 in. Hold. 6 out. Again. Again. A door opened below. She straightened before whoever it was could see her break. Nurse Maya appeared on the landing. She had blood on her sleeve and a look Claire did not want to face. For a moment, neither woman spoke. Then Maya said quietly, "That man is alive because of you." Claire looked past her. He was alive when he came in. Barely. Claire swallowed. Then he got lucky. Maya climbed 1 step. "No. We got lucky." Claire's face hardened just enough to close the door. "I need to write my note." She moved past Maya and continued up the stairs. Maya did not follow. In his office, Doctor, Cross stood at the window and watched rain drag silver lines down the glass. Behind him, Claire's file was open on his desk again. This time, he did not look at the medical school, the rotation scores, or the clean little boxes that said nothing. He thought of the way she had stepped into that room. Not bold, not reckless, called. That was the word he did not want to use. Some people ran toward fire because they wanted to be heroes. Claire Warren had moved like someone who hated the fire but understood it belonged to her. Cross picked up the phone and called Linda Morales. She answered on the second ring. "Residency office. Linda, pull everything we have on Dr. Claire Warren. We have her file already. I don't mean the file she gave us." There was a pause. "You want verification, I want gaps, addresses, prior licenses, name changes, anything attached to her medical training that isn't in the packet." Linda's voice lowered. "Is there a problem?" Cross looked through the rain toward the ambulance bay where another rig was backing into place. "I don't know yet." He hung up. Across the hospital, Claire sat alone in the call room with the lights off. The metal case rested on the bed in front of her. This time she opened it. Inside lay an old Army medical badge, a folded citation, and a photograph of a surgical team standing in desert dust. Her thumb brushed the edge of the picture. A younger version of herself looked back from the center of the frame. Different name, same eyes. A woman who had not yet learned how much one right decision could cost. Claire closed the case when her pager vibrated. The message glowed in the dark. Report to Chief of Surgery, 700 hours. She stared at it until the screen went black. The pager message stayed in Claire's mind longer than the sound that had announced it. Report to Chief of Surgery, 700 hours. She did not sleep after that. She sat on the edge of the call room bed with the metal case closed beside her and watched the weak morning light crawl across the floor. Rain kept tapping the window. Below, ambulances came and went, each one carrying someone else's emergency, someone else's worst minute, someone else's family waiting for a phone call that might split their life in two. Claire had spent years learning how to stay calm when the world became loud. This was different. A scalpel in her hand made sense. A bleeding vessel made sense. A room full of panic made sense because panic could be managed if someone knew where to put their hands. Questions were harder. Questions had doors behind them. At 6:55, she changed into clean scrubs, clipped her badge to her chest, and stepped into the hallway. Cedar Gate was waking up. Nurses from the night shift moved with heavy feet and empty coffee cups. Day shift residents hurried toward elevators, hair still damp from fast showers, stethoscopes, swinging faces caught between ambition and dread. A few of them looked at Claire as she passed. No one spoke. By now, they had all heard. Some version of the story had moved faster than the trauma team could chart it. The quiet resident. The open chest. The frozen attending. The impossible save. Claire could feel the whispers gathering in doorways. She kept walking. Dr. Nathaniel Cross's office was on the 12th floor behind glass walls that overlooked the city and the gray water of Commencement Bay. The view was beautiful in a cold way. Ships moved in the distance like dark thoughts. His assistant looked up when Claire arrived. "He's waiting for you." Of course he was. Claire knocked once. "Come in," Cross said. He stood behind his desk, not sitting, which told her he had already decided this conversation would not be comfortable. Her file lay open in front of him. Beside it sat a tablet, a yellow legal pad, and a cup of coffee gone untouched. "Dr. Warren." "Sir." "Sit down." Claire sat. Cross remained standing for a moment, studying her with the steady attention of a surgeon examining damage beneath skin. "You saved a man's life last night." Claire kept her hands loose on her knees. "Dr. Rowe and the team saved him." "No." The word landed clean and hard. Cross came around the desk and leaned against its edge. "Do not insult me with false humility. You took control of a failing thoracic trauma, identified the bleeding source, controlled 2 vascular injuries, restored circulation, and stabilized the patient before most senior residents would have found the clamp." Claire said nothing. "You did it in under a minute." I responded to what was in front of me. "That is exactly what concerns me." Her eyes lifted. Cross picked up her file. "Your record says you completed ordinary surgical rotations at ordinary hospitals. No trauma fellowship. No military service. No international aid work. No advanced vascular training. No documented exposure to mass casualty care." He dropped the folder back onto the desk. "And yet you moved like someone who has opened chests in places without backup." Claire's pulse beat once hard at the base of her throat. People learn in different ways. Not that way. The office fell quiet. Outside the glass wall, 2 administrators walked past and glanced in. Cross turned slightly and they moved on. He lowered his voice. Where did you train Dr. Warren Medical School? Residency rotations. You have not been in residency long enough. Before this program, your file does not support that. My file is accurate. Cross's expression did not change, but his eyes sharpened. Accurate and complete are not the same thing. Claire let the silence stretch. It was a tactic, but not a cruel one. Silence made people uncomfortable. It made them fill the room with things they had not meant to say. She had used it in interrogation rooms in command tents with wounded soldiers who were too proud to admit they were afraid. Cross did not fill it. He waited her out. Finally, Claire stood. Am I being removed from service? Not today. Am I being reported? Not yet. The phrase struck familiar ground. Not yet. He had used it before. This time it sounded less like caution and more like a warning. Then I need to check my patients. Cross did not stop her when she moved toward the door, but as her hand touched the handle, he spoke. Dr. Warren. She paused. If there is something in your past that affects patient safety, tell me before I find it another way. Claire looked back. My past has never killed a patient. Cross held her gaze. That is not what I asked. She left without answering. In the hallway, she walked slowly until she turned the corner. Then she stopped beside a supply alcove and pressed her palm flat against the wall. Her breathing remained quiet. Her face remained calm. Inside, old instincts were pulling maps across her mind. North exit, stairwell C. Parking structure, cash and locker. Bus station 12 blocks away. Phone in trash, badge left behind, no goodbye. She had done it before. The fact that she could do it again made her sick. Downstairs, the hospital had changed shape around her. It was the same corridors, the same polished floors, the same smell of disinfectant and burnt coffee, but people were looking now. A nurse at the medication station stopped speaking as Claire passed. 2 interns turned away too quickly. Trevor Ames stared with open curiosity until she looked at him, then pretended to read a chart. Dr. Ethan Rowe was waiting near the surgical board. His arms were crossed. His jaw was tight. He had shaved badly, missing a small patch beneath his left ear. Claire noticed because details were easier than emotions. Warren, he said. Dr. Rowe. He glanced toward the empty end of the hallway. You had no authority to take over my case. No. That answer seemed to wrong-foot him. He blinked. No. You're right. I had no authority. His face flushed. Then why did you do it? Claire looked through the glass doors toward the recovery unit. Because he still had a pulse. Rowe stepped closer. You made me look incompetent in front of my team. I did not do it for your team. You think that helps? No. A muscle ticked in his cheek. You are a first-year resident. You do not get to decide when an attending is done. Claire's voice stayed low. I did not decide you were done. Rowe stared at her. For one brief second, hurt broke through the anger. Then it was gone. He pointed toward the board. You are off trauma for the rest of the week. Post-operative checks, discharge summaries, wound care. Nothing invasive unless I am in the room. Claire nodded. Yes, sir. That irritated him more. He wanted defiance. He wanted arrogance. He wanted proof that she thought she was better than him. She gave him obedience, and somehow it felt worse. The day became small on purpose. Claire checked incisions, changed dressings, adjusted pain medication, helped a confused older man call his daughter, held pressure on a bleeding IV site until a nurse could resecure it, wrote notes so clean and spare that no attending could complain. She did not go near the trauma bay. She did not look toward the operating rooms unless a patient needed her to. By afternoon, the rumors had grown teeth. Trevor caught her in the stairwell. "Is it true Cross is investigating you?" Claire kept climbing. "Ask Dr. Cross." So that is a yes. That is a you like hearing yourself talk. He laughed, but he followed her. "People are saying you used to be an attending somewhere." "No. A surgeon overseas number. Witness protection." Claire stopped on the landing and turned. Trevor stopped too. For the first time, he looked unsure. Claire's voice was quiet. "Do not make a game out of things you do not understand." He swallowed. The stairwell hummed around them. Fluorescent light, distant elevator chime, rain against high windows. Trevor stepped aside. "Fine." Claire continued up. At 5:30, Cross received Linda Morales in his office. She closed the door behind her and placed a folder on his desk. "I checked everything we legally have access to." Cross opened it. "And Claire Warren exists. That is not encouraging." Linda gave him a tired look. "She graduated from North Valley. She passed her licensing exams. Her temporary resident credentials are valid. Her references confirmed basic dates." "Basic dates?" "Yes. No one volunteered much beyond that." Cross flipped through the pages. The 2-year gap, not fully explained. She listed family obligations and contract medical work, where rural clinics, short-term assignments. Some records confirm, some are vague. Vague how Linda hesitated. Clean vague. Cross looked up. She continued. Like someone knew exactly what had to be documented and nothing more. Cross leaned back. "Name history." "None found under Claire Warren." "That does not mean none." "No," Linda said. "It means none easy." Cross closed the folder. Linda's expression softened a little. "Nathaniel, she saved that patient." "I know." "Then what are we doing?" Cross looked toward the rain-streaked window, trying to understand whether the person who saved him is legally allowed to stand in my operating room. Linda did not answer. Because there was no answer that made the problem smaller. That evening, Cedargate received the call that turned the hospital into a stage. The first alert came through administration, not emergency dispatch. A confidential VIP admission. Male, 62, severe abdominal pain. Fever, hypotension, possible surgical abdomen. Name restricted until arrival. Then the security team came upstairs and everyone knew it was bigger than appendicitis. By 8:40, black SUVs were parked under the covered ambulance entrance. Federal agents moved through the lobby with clipped voices and clear earpieces. Hospital executives appeared in suits that still had dinner creases. Media vans gathered outside the gate after someone leaked just enough to make them hungry. At 9:10, the name reached the surgical floor. United States Senator Robert Harlan, Defense Committee. 3 terms. War veteran, national figure. A man whose face had been on every cable news channel after every foreign policy crisis for the last decade. A nurse whispered, "Why here?" Maya answered while checking a crash cart. "Because rich people bleed too." Claire heard the name from the end of the hallway and felt nothing at first. Then the second name arrived in memory not spoken, just burned somewhere behind her ribs. Harlan. She gripped the chart in her hand too tightly. Dr. Cross assembled the team in a small conference room outside the operating suite. Rowe would lead. 2 senior surgeons would assist. Anesthesia had been notified. Security would control access. No unnecessary personnel. No photos. No leaks. Claire stood near the back, hoping not to be seen. Cross saw her anyway. "Dr. Warren, you will assist." Rowe turned sharply. "With respect. Chief, I do not need a first-year resident on a VIP case." Cross did not look at him. "I did not ask what you need." Claire kept her voice even. "Sir, I am currently off trauma service. This is not a trauma admission." Rowe's mouth tightened. Claire said, "There are senior residents available." Cross met her eyes. I chose you." The room went quiet. Claire understood then that this was not an assignment. It was a test. Or a trap. Maybe both. At 9:52, Senator Harlan was rolled into OR2. He looked smaller than he did on television. Pain did that to powerful men. It stripped away posture, polished language, and the force of public certainty. His skin was damp, his breathing shallow. Fever had brightened his eyes. Still, when he saw the surgical team, he tried to speak. "Do not let the vultures outside write my obituary." Rowe forced a smile. "Not tonight, Senator." Claire stood at the instrument table and kept her head down. Harlan's eyes passed over her once. Nothing. She let herself breathe. The surgery began as routine. That lasted 6 minutes. Rowe made the incision cleanly. His hands were steady. His voice had regained its polished confidence. He requested suction retraction cautery. The monitors held. Anesthesia reported stable pressure. Then the abdomen opened. The smell rose first. Sharp. Foul. Unmistakable. Contamination. Rowe froze, not fully, but enough. Maya looked up from the instrument table. Claire saw her eyes narrow over her mask. One of the senior surgeons muttered, "That is not appendicitis." No, Claire thought. It was worse. A bowel perforation. Inflamed tissue. Necrotic edges. Infection spreading through the abdominal cavity. The senator was already closer to septic shock than anyone had known. Anesthesia called out, "Pressure dropping. 90/50. Rowe swallowed. "We need colorectal. Call Dr. Lin. Get infectious disease ready." Claire spoke before she could stop herself. "There is no time." Rowe looked at her across the field. "What did you say? Source control now. Resection washout diversion if needed. Antibiotics are already behind the problem." The pressure dropped again. Anesthesia's voice sharpened. 80/45. Rowe's eyes flicked to the monitor, then back to the wound. Claire saw the room begin to tilt around him. The same invisible edge, the same locked breath. Rowe whispered, "Damn it." Claire leaned closer, voice low enough that only he could hear. "Breathe." His eyes snapped to hers. "Do not manage me, then manage him." For a second she thought he might throw her out. Instead, he stepped half an inch back. Not enough for anyone else to read as surrender. Enough for Claire. She moved in. No drama. No announcement. Her hands simply entered the work. She packed the contaminated field, isolated the damaged segment, directed suction, asked for warm irrigation. Changed gloves and found viable margins with the confidence of someone who had done this under worse lights with fewer tools and no specialist coming. Rowe watched anger and awe fighting across his face. The senior surgeons did not interfere. They could have. They should have. But the body on the table was failing, and Claire was the only one moving faster than the collapse. Maya passed each instrument before Claire named it. Their eyes met once. Maya knew. Not the whole story, not the name or the place, but she knew this was not new to Claire. The senator's pressure wavered, then held. Claire resected the damaged bowel-controlled contamination and created a temporary diversion. Her voice stayed calm, each order short and exact. More irrigation. Suction left lower quadrant. Hold tension here. Do not pull. Lift. Good. Again. The operating room obeyed because the patient was improving. Then Harlan moved. It was slight at first. A shift beneath the drape. His eyelids fluttered in the strange twilight of anesthesia and fever. Anesthesia adjusted medication. He is light. Giving more now. The senator's eyes opened halfway. Clouded. Unfocused. But they found Claire. His lips moved. No sound came. Claire kept suturing. Then he whispered a name. Donovan. The needle stopped. For one fatal second, her hand hung in the air. The room seemed to lose all sound except the monitor. Harlan's eyes fixed harder on her. Major Donovan. Claire's chest locked. No. Anesthesia looked over the drape. Senator, try not to speak. But Harlan was no longer in Cedar Gate. Fever had pulled him backward. You pulled my boy out of Mosul. Roe turned slowly toward Claire. What did he just call you? Claire did not answer. Her hand resumed moving, but something had changed. Her body worked. Her mind split apart. Mosul. Heat under canvas. Blood drying black on gloves. A young soldier screaming for his mother until the airway tube went in. Command shouting evacuation orders. Mortars walking closer. A helicopter lifting off without her. Harlan whispered again. Ben said you stayed. Claire tied the final suture too tightly, caught it, corrected it, and forced her voice to work. Pressure. Anesthesia glanced at the monitor. Stabilizing. Urine output. Improving. Temperature still high. Continue warming measures. Broad spectrum coverage. ICU after closure. Roe leaned closer. Warren. She cut him off. Not now. It was not loud. It was not emotional. It was command. Roe stopped. The rest of the operation finished in a silence so complete that every instrument sounded too sharp against the tray. When the temporary closure was secure and the senator's vitals had stabilized, Claire stepped back. He will survive the night. No one answered. She peeled off her gloves, dropped them into the biohazard bin, and moved toward the door. Roe followed her into the scrub area. Who is Donovan? Claire turned on the water and scrubbed blood from beneath her nails. Someone else. That man recognized you. He was febrile. He said Mosul. The water ran pink, then clear. Roe stepped closer. I do not care how good you are. If you lied your way into this hospital, every patient you touched becomes a legal disaster. Claire shut off the water. For the first time all day, she looked tired. Then report me. I might. You should. That stopped him. The door opened behind them. Dr. Cross stood there. He had been called down during closure. Or perhaps he had been watching longer than she knew. His face was unreadable. Dr. Roe, check on Senator Harlan's transfer to ICU. Roe did not move. Chief, we need to talk about what happened in there. We will. Now. Cross's voice dropped. That was not a request. Roe looked at Claire, then left. The scrub room door closed. Water dripped from Claire's hands onto the tile. Cross did not speak immediately. He looked at her badge. Dr. Claire Warren. Then her face. Then the red marks across her wrists where the gloves had been. Finally he said, The senator called you Major Donovan. Claire reached for a paper towel. Patients say strange things under anesthesia. He said Mosul. She dried her hands carefully. Cross stepped closer. Your file says you have never served in the military. My file says what it says. Look at me. She did. The room seemed smaller than it had a moment before. Cross's voice softened, but the softness made it worse. I have seen surgeons lie because they were arrogant. I have seen them lie because they were afraid. I have seen them lie because they thought the rules were beneath them. Claire said nothing. I do not think any of those explain you. Her throat tightened. He continued. I think you are running from a name. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Claire felt the old maps unfold again. Exit routes, distance, timing, disappearance. But her legs did not move. Cross looked at her badge one last time. Then he said the words that ended the life she had built in Tacoma. Your name is not Claire Warren. Claire held his gaze, and she did not deny it. Claire had spent years teaching herself not to react when someone came too close to the truth. A steady face, a quiet breath, empty hands, still eyes. That was how a person survived questions. But Dr. Cross had not asked a question. He had named the wound. Your name is not Claire Warren. The scrub room seemed to narrow around her. The water had stopped running, but she could still hear it in her head rushing over stainless steel, washing blood into the drain, carrying away every lie she had used to stay alive inside her own skin. Cross waited. Claire folded the damp paper towel once, then again, and dropped it into the trash. "My name is on my badge. That is not an answer. It is the only one I have." "No," Cross said. "It is the only one you are willing to give." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then the door opened. A woman in a dark suit stepped inside as if she had known exactly where to find them. She was in her early 40s, with calm eyes, plain hair pulled tight, and the kind of posture that made hospital security guards step aside without being told why. She looked at Claire first. Not at the badge, at her face. Major Donovan. Claire felt the room tilt. Cross turned sharply. The woman held up a federal credential. Mara Voss, Department of Defense Investigative Service. Claire's voice came out lower than she expected. "You are a long way from your office. So are you." Cross looked between them. "You know her." Agent Voss slid the badge back into her jacket. "I know who she was." Claire almost laughed, but there was no air for it. "Then you know enough to leave." Voss did not move. "Senator Harlan is in intensive care asking why the surgeon who saved his life is using another name." Claire stared at the tile floor. Cross said, "We are not having this conversation in a scrub room." They moved through the back corridors without speaking. The hospital around them was still awake in the way hospitals never truly slept. Elevators opened and closed. A cart rattled past with clean linens stacked high. Somewhere a child cried. Somewhere else a family prayed in whispers outside a closed door. Claire felt every sound too clearly. Cross led them to a small administrative conference room behind the surgical offices. No windows, one table, 4 chairs, a wall clock, a muted screen mounted above a credenza. Agent Voss closed the door. Claire chose the chair nearest to the exit. Cross noticed. Voss placed a tablet on the table and turned it toward him. On the screen was a photograph. Claire in uniform, younger, leaner. Sun darkened, hair tucked beneath a patrol cap, a medical insignia on her chest, eyes that had not yet learned how to look empty. The name beneath the image read, Major Allison Donovan, M.D., United States Army Medical Corps. Cross stood very still. Claire did not look at the screen. Voss swiped to the next page. Deployed to Iraq and Syria, attached to forward surgical teams. Multiple commendations for combat trauma care. 2 Bronze Star recommendations. 1 officially awarded. 1 withdrawn. Later charged under military law for disobeying a direct evacuation order during an attack outside Mosul. Cross looked at Claire. Charged. Claire's mouth tightened. Convicted. Voss kept her voice neutral. Administrative separation followed. Medical license suspended pending review. Record sealed after appeal complications. Cross absorbed that. The clock ticked too loudly. "What happened in Mosul?" he asked. Claire said nothing. Voss answered because Claire would not. Forward surgical element near an evacuation corridor. Intelligence suggested enemy forces were closing on the compound. Command ordered medical staff to evacuate. Major Donovan had a critically wounded soldier on the table. Claire closed her eyes. The room vanished. Heat came first. Not memory as image. Memory as temperature. Mosul was always hot in her mind. Hot air trapped under canvas. Hot metal trays. Hot blood soaking through gauze faster than anyone could replace it. The generators were failing that day, coughing black smoke into a sky already bruised with fire. Corporal Benjamin Harlan came in on a stretcher carried by 2 medics who were barely older than he was. 19 years old, chest torn open by shrapnel, abdomen rigid, right leg mangled above the knee, blood pressure falling through the floor. His dog tags were sticky against his throat. He kept trying to speak around the oxygen mask. Claire leaned close. "Save your breath, Corporal." His hand grabbed her sleeve. "My dad," he gasped. "Tell my dad I did not run." Claire gripped his wrist. "You can tell him yourself." The first mortar landed outside the compound before they could prep him. Dust shook from the lights. A nurse ducked. Someone shouted that the evacuation birds were spinning up. Then Colonel Reeves entered the surgical tent with his helmet on and his sidearm at his hip. "Donovan, we are leaving." Claire had both hands inside Benjamin Harlan's chest. "No, sir." Reeves stepped closer. "That was not a request. He will die if I move him. He will die if this base is overrun." The second blast landed closer. A tray hit the floor. Instruments scattered. One of the medics swore and crossed himself. Claire did not look up. "Then, hold the line." Reeves grabbed her shoulder. "Major, you have 6 minutes." Claire finally looked at him. The boy on the table had no color left in his face. "Then, stop wasting them." Back in the conference room, Claire opened her eyes. Voss was still speaking. Major Donovan remained behind with the skeleton medical team and continued operating for 1 hour and 47 minutes after the evacuation order. Corporal Harlan survived. The delay created operational complications. Claire looked at her. "Say it clean." Voss met her eyes. "They said you endangered personnel." "I did." Cross's expression shifted. Claire continued. "I made them stay. 2 nurses, 1 anesthetist, 1 medic. They all stayed because I would not leave that kid open on the table." Cross said quietly, "Did anyone die because of it?" Claire's face changed. There it was. The real question. No. The answer was immediate but not clean. It carried weight. No one in that tent died, but that did not matter. The order was clear. I broke it. The Army needed the case closed. Senator Harlan's son living made it political. Me being right made it inconvenient. Voss did not argue. Cross sat down slowly. "Why hide?" Claire laughed once. The sound had no humor in it. Because doors close quietly when your file says dishonorable discharge. Because every hospital smiles politely before they decline. Because medical boards move slowly when no one powerful is bleeding on the table. Because people love heroes until the hero embarrasses the system. No one spoke. Her anger faded as fast as it came. Under it was exhaustion. I changed what I could change. Took contract work, clinics, night coverage, anything that kept me near medicine without letting anyone look too closely. Cedar Gate had an opening. My temporary paperwork cleared. Claire Warren was not a lie. Not completely. Cross looked at the badge on her chest. But Allison Donovan was missing. Claire's voice dropped. She was buried. Before Cross could respond, the hospital alarm system cut through the room. A hard tone pulsed from the ceiling speaker. Then a voice followed. Mass casualty alert. All available trauma, emergency, surgical, respiratory, and critical care staff report to emergency command stations. Mass casualty alert. Estimated arrival in 8 minutes. Voss's phone buzzed. She looked down and all the professionalism drained from her face. Fuel tanker explosion near the port of Tacoma. It hit a commuter bus. Fire department reports blast injuries, burns, inhalation trauma. At least 50 patients. Possibly more. Cross was already on his feet. He looked at Claire. Not Claire Warren. Not the resident with a thin file. The surgeon from the photograph. How many incidents like this have you commanded? Claire stood. The old rhythm entered her body so completely it frightened her. Enough to know your emergency department is about to become too small. Cross opened the door. Then, move. They ran. By the time they reached the emergency department, chaos was already gathering at the edges. Nurses were dragging extra stretchers into corridors. Security was clearing families out of waiting areas. Respiratory therapists were lining up ventilators. Blood bank coolers arrived on a cart pushed by a technician whose face had gone pale. The first sirens were still distant. That was the dangerous minute. The minute before impact. Too late for theory. Too early for blood. The minute when fear had room to spread. Claire stepped into the center of the trauma bay. People were moving everywhere. Too much motion, not enough purpose. She climbed onto the footrail of an empty stretcher. Stop. No one heard her. Cross raised his voice. Everyone quiet. The room snapped toward him. He pointed to Claire. Listen to her. Claire looked across the faces. Residents, nurses, techs, attendings. People who had known her as the ghost. People who had mocked her silence. People who had seen her hands move inside a dying man's chest. She did not ask for permission. Red tags go to trauma bays 1 through 4. Airway compromise, active hemorrhage, shock, penetrating trauma. Yellow tags to the west corridor. Stable but surgical. Green tags to urgent care overflow. Walking wounded do not enter the trauma core. Black tags to the chapel hallway until transport confirms morgue capacity. A first-year resident stared at her. Black tags. Claire looked at him. Expectant or dead? They do not take beds from people we can save. The words cut the air. No one liked them. That was why they mattered. Maya, Claire said. The nurse looked up. You control triage flow at the ambulance entrance. No patient gets past you without a tag. Maya nodded once. Dr. Rowe. Rowe had just entered pulling on gloves. Claire met his eyes. Bay 3, vascular and crush. You are steady when you breathe. So breathe. His jaw tightened, but he moved. Trevor. The young resident nearly dropped the chart in his hand. Yes, you are runners and supplies. Blood chest tubes, burn sheets, central line kits. You do not improvise. You do not vanish. You move where Maya sends you. Yes, doctor. He did not call her Warren. Claire turned across. Open 2 operating rooms now. Keep 1 clean for abdominal catastrophe. 1 for vascular. ICU needs vents ready. Call every off-duty surgeon within 20 miles and tell them this is not a drill. Cross was already dialing. The first ambulance arrived before she finished speaking. The doors burst open and the smell came in with the patient. Smoke, fuel, burned fabric, burned hair. A woman in her 40s rolled in on a stretcher, skin blistered across her arms and neck. Breath coming in high, ugly pulls. A firefighter squeezed the bag at her face. Bus passenger. Burns to face and chest. Voice was hoarse on scene. Lost airway once. Claire moved beside the stretcher. Bay 1. Airway now. The woman's eyes were open wide with terror. Claire leaned over her. My name is Dr. Donovan. I am going to help you breathe. The name left her mouth before she could stop it. Cross heard. So did Maya. No one reacted. There was no time. The airway was swelling. Claire could see it. The mouth opening, narrowing. The tissues angry and wet. She took the laryngoscope from the tray. Etomidate. Succinylcholine. Prepare surgical airway if I miss. The resident beside her whispered, If you miss. Claire slid the blade in. I will not. 30 seconds later, the tube was in. Breath sounds confirmed. Oxygen rising. Another ambulance. Then another. The emergency department became a living machine under pressure. A man with a crushed pelvis. A child with glass in her neck. A bus driver with a steering column injury. A firefighter coughing soot and blood. A pregnant woman with burns across her hands asking for her husband, asking again when no one answered. Claire moved from bay to bay with a precision that did not feel human to the people watching. But inside her it felt horribly human. Every face became 2 faces. the patient in front of her and someone from before. A soldier, a medic, a boy on a table in Mosul begging her not to let him die a coward. She forced the past into use, not away, into use. Chest tube tray, 2 units O negative. Do not remove that metal fragment until we are in the OR. Pressure on the wound, real pressure. Call pediatrics. Tell blood bank we are switching to massive transfusion protocol. The hospital obeyed. Rowe called from Bay 3. Donovan, I need eyes. Claire crossed to him. A dock worker lay on the bed with his thigh split open, blood pulsing through soaked gauze. Rowe had control, but barely. Femoral branch, he said. Claire looked once. Higher. He adjusted. The bleeding slowed. His eyes flicked to hers. Thank you. Finish it. He did. Across the room, Trevor froze beside a teenage girl with a neck wound. Blood ran between his fingers. I do not know what to do. Claire stepped in, placed his hand correctly, and pressed. Yes, you do. You keep pressure here, not near it. On it. Look at me. He looked at her. Do not look at the blood. Look at her face. She is still here. The girl's eyes were full of tears. Claire spoke to her. You are doing well. Stay with Trevor. He is not leaving you. Trevor swallowed. No, ma'am. Another explosion victim arrived without a pulse. Maya shouted from the entrance. Expectant. No signs of life on scene. Traumatic arrest. 20 minutes down. A resident moved toward the stretcher. Claire stopped him. No. He looked horrified. We have to try. Claire's voice was steady. We have 4 patients with pulses and no airway. You go where life is still asking for help. His eyes filled. For 1 second, she saw herself in him young enough to believe refusing death hard enough could make it leave. Then he turned and ran to Bay 2. Claire looked at the dead man on the stretcher. I am sorry, she said quietly. Then she moved on. Hours blurred. The rain outside became dawn gray. The ambulance stream slowed. The shouting became hoarse. The floor turned slick despite constant mopping. Nurses changed gloves until their hands cracked. Surgeons came down from upstairs. Respiratory therapists worked like they had 4 hands each. Cross stayed in the center of it, not commanding over Claire, but beside her. He watched her make impossible choices and carry each one without asking anyone to admire the weight. Near 4 a.m, the last critical patient left for surgery. The emergency department settled into a stunned, ruined quiet. Machines still beeped. People still moved. But the first wave was over. Claire stood beside an empty bay scrubs, streaked with blood soot on her cheek hair coming loose at the back of her neck. Her hands had started to shake. Not enough for anyone careless to see. Enough for Cross. Maya approached with a paper cup of water. Claire took it, but did not drink. How many, Claire asked. Maya checked the board. 53 received. 39 critical or serious. 8 green. 4 dead before arrival. 2 died here. Claire closed her eyes. Preventable, Maya's voice softened. No. Claire opened her eyes again. Do not say that to comfort me. I would not. Cross stepped beside them. Our operating rooms are full. ICU is stretched but holding. The transfer center found beds for 6. Fire department says no more incoming from the scene. Claire nodded. Her body wanted to sit. Her mind would not allow it. Rowe appeared from Bay 3. His gown was soaked, his eyes red. The dock worker made it upstairs. Good. Rowe looked at her for a long moment. Major Donovan. Claire flinched. He saw it. So did Cross. Rowe corrected himself. Doctor. Claire looked at him. That will do. A faint sound almost became a laugh between them, but it died before it reached the air. Agent Voss entered from the main corridor, careful not to step in the worst of the blood on the floor. Her dark suit looked out of place among ruined scrubs and empty supply wrappers. Claire knew what she had come to say before she spoke. Voss stopped a few feet away. Senator Harlan is awake. Claire's jaw tightened. Voss continued. He is asking for the woman who saved his son. Cross looked at Claire. The room around them was full of survivors, full of loss, full of the terrible quiet after a hospital has taken the impact of disaster and remained standing. Claire stared toward the elevators. Her badge still said, Dr. Claire Warren. Her hand still remembered Major Allison Donovan. For the first time in years, she did not know which name would answer when she walked into that room. Claire walked toward the ICU elevators with Agent Voss on her left and Dr. Cross a few steps behind her. The hospital had gone quiet in that strange way that only came after a catastrophe. Not peaceful, never peaceful, just emptied out. The kind of quiet that followed screaming alarms and running feet. The kind that left every sound too clear. A mop bucket rolled somewhere behind them. An exhausted nurse laughed once too sharply, then stopped. A ventilator hissed from behind a closed curtain. Overhead, the lights hummed with steady indifference. Claire looked down at her hands. Someone else's blood remained beneath the edge of one fingernail. She curled her fingers into her palm. Agent Voss pressed the elevator button. "You do not have to say much," she said. Claire looked at the silver doors. "That is usually the safest option." Voss did not smile. Not always. The doors opened. Claire stepped inside. For 12 floors, no one spoke. The ICU was guarded by 2 federal agents in dark suits who looked tired enough to be human. One checked Agent Voss's credentials. The other looked at Claire's badge. Dr. Claire Warren. His eyes stayed there for half a second. Claire felt it like a hand on her throat. Voss said, "She is cleared." The agent stepped aside. Senator Robert Harlan's room was at the end of the hall, past glass walls and monitors and the soft mechanical breath of critical care. The senator had survived surgery infection fever and the first hard night. He looked nothing like the man who had commanded hearings from behind polished wood desks. He looked older, smaller, pale under the hospital lights. But his eyes were awake. They found Claire the moment she entered. For a second, the room became Mosul again. Not the fire, not the blasts. Just a boy's hand locked around her sleeve and a voice asking her to tell his father he had not run. Senator Harlan tried to sit higher. Pain stopped him. "Major Donovan," he said. Claire remained near the door. "That name is not on my badge." "No," he said. "But it is on my son's life." The words went through her cleanly. Agent Voss stood near the wall. Cross stayed outside the door at first, giving them space, but Claire could feel him there. Harlan's voice was rough. "I have looked for you for 4 years." Claire did not move. "People keep saying that as if I was lost. You were." "No, Senator. I was discarded." His face tightened. He accepted the hit without flinching. "Yes," he said. "You were." That stopped her more effectively than any defense would have. Most powerful men explained. They justified. They widened the frame until blame became fog. Harlan did none of that. He lay in the bed with tubes in his arm and fever in his skin and let the words stand. Discarded. Claire looked away first. "How is Benjamin?" At the sound of his son's name, Harlan's face changed. "He is alive." Claire closed her eyes for one breath. The senator continued. "He walks with a limp when it rains. He hates elevators. He cannot sit with his back to a restaurant door. But he is alive." Claire swallowed. "He was 19. He still is some mornings. In my mind?" A faint monitor beeped beside the bed. Harlan reached slowly toward the small table beside him. His hand trembled. Agent Voss moved before Claire could pick up a sealed folder and brought it to her. Claire did not take it. "What is that?" Harlan said. "Part of what should have happened years ago." Claire's mouth hardened. I am not interested in gratitude wrapped in paperwork. It is not gratitude. Then what is it evidence that the system was wrong? The room held still. Claire took the folder. It was heavier than she expected. Inside were copies of official decisions, review board findings, medical licensing communications, letters with seals, signatures, dates and language so dry it almost made the destruction of a life sound clerical. Her discharge status had been reviewed. The finding had been reversed. Her record had been corrected to honorable service. The medical board had received documentation supporting reinstatement. Pending final formalities, her license could be restored under emergency administrative clearance. Claire read the same paragraph 3 times and understood none of it. Her fingers began to shake. She hated that Harlan could see it. "This is impossible," she said. "No," Harlan answered. It was slow. 4 years. Yes, 4 years of rooms I could not rent under my own history. 4 years of hospitals that would not touch me. 4 years of waking up with my phone in my hand because I was about to call my brother, and then remembering I had nothing to say except that I was ashamed. Harlan's eyes filled with tears. Claire hated that too. She wanted anger. Anger gave structure to pain. It gave her somewhere to stand. She stepped closer to the bed. "You do not get to hand me this and call it fixed." "I know. I slept in my car outside Boise for 9 nights because the clinic I worked for found my sealed record through someone who knew someone." Harlan closed his eyes. "I know." "No, you do not." Her voice sharpened but did not rise. "You do not know what it is like to be punished for staying. You do not know what it is like to hear people call you reckless because the person on your table was inconvenient to command. You do not know what it costs to become a ghost while you are still breathing." Harlan opened his eyes. "You are right." Claire stopped. Again, no defense, just surrender. The senator's voice broke. "But my son knows what it cost you. He has known every day. He tried to find you too. He wrote letters. He called offices. He wanted to testify. He blamed himself because you lost everything after saving him." Claire looked down at the folder. "No." "Yes. No," she said again more quietly. "He was the patient. He owed me nothing," Harlan whispered. "That is what he said you would say." A pressure built behind Claire's eyes. She would not cry in that room, not with a federal agent watching, not with Cross at the door, not beside the bed of a man whose life had twisted around hers in ways neither of them had chosen. Harlan took a slow breath. "Benjamin is a teacher now. Middle school history. He has a daughter named Lucy. She is 3. She likes dinosaurs and pancakes usually at the same time. He gets to wake up in a messy house and complain about bills and read bedtime stories badly. That is the life you gave him." Claire pressed the folder against her chest. The image came too fast. The boy on the table. Then a grown man holding a child. The same life stretched beyond the blood. She looked toward the window, but the blinds were closed. "I did what any surgeon should have done." Harlan shook his head. "No. You did what many good people were too afraid to do." The door opened softly. Dr. Cross stepped inside. "I am sorry to interrupt." Claire wiped her face with the back of her wrist before anyone could name what was there. Cross looked at Harlan. "Senator, you need rest." Harlan nodded. Then he looked at Claire again. "Do not let what they did to you decide the rest of your life." Claire almost laughed. "You say that like it is a switch." "No," Harlan said. "I say it like a man who almost died before he could tell you." She held his gaze. There was nothing left to say that would not break something. She turned and walked out. Cross followed her into the hallway. Agent Voss stayed behind. Claire made it 6 steps before her knees weakened. She caught herself against the wall. Cross stopped beside her but did not touch her. That restraint mattered. "Breathe," he said. She almost snapped at him. Then she did it. In through the nose, hold, out through the mouth. Again. The old training still worked even when the old life did not. Cross waited until her breathing steadied. "I need to ask you something," he said. Claire looked at him. "If it is whether I lied to this hospital, the answer is yes." That was not the question. It should be. It will be. Later. With legal counsel and credentialing, and people who will use words like exposure and liability because that is what they are paid to do. His voice was tired but not cold. "My question is whether you want to practice medicine as Allison Donovan again." Claire looked down the ICU hallway. A respiratory therapist passed pushing a ventilator. A nurse adjusted an IV pump. Somewhere behind glass, a man opened his eyes to another day he nearly did not receive. "I do not know how. That is honest. It is not enough." No, Cross said. "It is a start." She gave him a sharp look. "You barely know me. I know how you behave when people are dying. That is not the same thing. It is the part that matters most in my department." Claire shifted the folder in her arms. "You should be angry." "I am. At me, at the risk you brought into my hospital without telling me, at the people who made you believe hiding was your only option, at myself because I saw the signs and still did not understand fast enough." Claire had no answer. Cross continued. "The board will be cautious. The lawyers will be worse. Some staff will feel betrayed. Some will think you are a hero. Both reactions are dangerous. Neither one is the full truth." Claire's voice was low. "What do you think?" Cross looked at her for a long moment. "I think a surgeon walked into my hospital under a damaged name and saved lives before I deserved the truth." She looked away. "That sounds like forgiveness." "No. It sounds like work." A nurse came down the hall, recognized Cross, and stopped. "Chief OR4 is asking for you." He nodded. "1 minute." When she left, he turned back to Claire. "Go somewhere quiet. Call someone who knew you before this place." Her hand moved toward her pocket before she could stop it. Cross noticed. "Who is Jack?" Claire stiffened. "I saw the name on your emergency contact form. You listed him, then crossed him out. Of course he had seen it. Surgeons noticed damage. Chiefs noticed gaps. My brother. Call him." Claire looked toward the stairwell. "He may not answer." Cross's expression softened. "Then leave a message." She left him there. The chapel was on the second floor, tucked behind a corridor most visitors missed unless they were looking for it or had nowhere else to go. It was small, with wooden chairs, an unlit candle stand, and a stained glass window that turned the gray morning into fractured blue. Claire sat in the back row. For a long time she held the phone without unlocking it. Jack Donovan's name was still there. 3 years of silence lived beneath 4 letters. She pressed call before courage could leave. He answered on the first ring. Not the second, not after hesitation. The first. Allie. The sound of her old name almost ended her. Claire bowed her head. "Yeah." On the other end, a breath broke. "Is it really you?" "It is me." Jack laughed once, but it came out like pain. "Where are you, Tacoma? Are you safe?" She looked around the chapel at the chairs, the window, the folder on her lap. "I think so." "You think so?" "I am in a hospital. As a patient, no." A long silence. Then Jack said, "You are working." I was. "Allie." The way he said it carried everything. Anger, relief, exhaustion, love worn thin but not gone. Claire closed her eyes. "I am sorry." "No, Do not do that first. She opened her eyes. What if you start with sorry? You will make it sound like a goodbye. I cannot do another goodbye. Her throat closed. Jack's voice softened. Mom thinks you are dead some days. Claire pressed her fist against her mouth. I know. She keeps your room the same. I told her it was unhealthy. She told me to shut up and dust the shelves. A broken laugh escaped Claire before she could stop it. Jack heard it. For a second, the years thinned. Then he said, Come home. I do not know if I can. Then come to the driveway. We will work from there. Tears finally spilled silent and hot. I have done things I cannot explain over the phone. I figured. I lost my name. No, Jack said. You stopped using it. That is different. She stared at the stained glass until the colors blurred. I am tired. I know. I am so tired, Jack. His voice broke. Then stop running for one day. Just one. We can talk about the next one later. Claire nodded, though he could not see her. Tell Mom I will call. No, he said. You tell her. She has waited long enough. After they hung up, Claire sat in the chapel until the tears stopped and her face felt cold. She did not feel healed. She felt emptied enough to stand. By late afternoon, the hospital had learned enough to become restless. No official announcement had been made, but hospitals did not need announcements. They had elevators, nurses' stations, scrub sinks, and people who had survived too many night shifts to believe silence meant nothing. Dr. Rowe found Claire in the scrub room outside OR 2. He looked like he had not slept in 2 days. His eyes were red. His hands were raw from washing. For a moment they stood on opposite sides of the sinks like enemies who had run out of ammunition. Rowe spoke first. I owe you an apology. Claire turned off the water. For which part? That surprised him. Then he almost smiled. All right, several apologies. She reached for a towel. He leaned against the counter. I hated you after the crane collapse. I noticed. You made me feel weak. I did not make you freeze. The words were blunt, but her voice was not cruel. Rowe looked down. No. You did not. The vent hummed overhead. He said I lost a patient last year. A boy, 17. Motorcycle accident. I opened him and there was too much damage. I kept thinking there had to be one more move. One more clamp. One more trick. There was not. Claire listened. After that, every time a patient crashed, some part of me went back to that table. Yes. He looked at her. That is it. Yes, that is what happens. I thought it meant I was not cut out for this anymore. It means you are wounded. His jaw tightened. I do not like that word. No one does. He looked at the floor. In the OR with Harlan, when you told me to breathe, I wanted to hate you for it. But you breathed. Barely. Barely counts. Rowe let out a slow breath. I need to learn how you do it. Claire looked at him carefully. No, you do not. He frowned. You just said I could learn. You can learn to work inside fear. You do not want to learn how I learned. He absorbed that, then nodded. Fair. Claire threw the towel away. I am building something. Or Cross is trying to make me build something. Trauma readiness. Real drills. No theater, no pretending mass casualties are tidy. You want in, row straightened. Yes, no pride in the room. That may take practice. It will. No blaming residents because you are scared. He looked ashamed. I know. No worship either. I am not your war story. Ro met her eyes. No. You are my colleague if you still want to be. Claire did not answer immediately. The word colleague felt heavier than it should have. Finally, she said, "Show up tomorrow at 6. Ro nodded. I will. When Claire entered the boardroom the next morning, every seat was filled. Hospital executives, legal counsel, credentialing officers, department heads. Cross at the far end. Linda Morales near the wall with a folder clutched to her chest. Agent Voss. Senator Harlan joined by secure video from his ICU bed because apparently near death had done nothing to improve his patience. Claire wore a clean white coat without a name embroidered on it. Not Claire Warren. Not Allison Donovan. Blank fabric over a body still deciding. The legal counsel began carefully. Dr. Warren or Dr. Donovan, we need to establish the timeline of your credentials and representation to the institution. Claire looked at him. Yes. For 2 hours they asked questions, she answered. Not everything. Not the classified details. Not the things that belong to dead people and desert nights. But enough. More than enough. She admitted what she had hidden. She explained what paperwork had allowed. She accepted the hospital's concern without begging. She did not perform regret, but she did not deny damage. Then Cross spoke. This hospital has a choice. We can reduce this matter to liability and lose the most capable trauma surgeon I have seen in 20 years. Or we can do the harder thing, correct the record, protect the institution, and use her experience to make this place better. The chief financial officer cleared his throat. With respect, Nathaniel, this sounds expensive. Claire looked at him then. So is being unprepared. The room went still. She stood. The port explosion did not overwhelm us because we were lucky. It almost overwhelmed us because we were structured for ordinary emergencies. That is not failure. That is normal. But normal is not enough in a city with a major port, highways, military families, industrial sites, and weather that turns roads into traps. She clicked the remote. The screen filled with a simple map of Cedar Gate's emergency flow from the night before. No decoration, no drama. Just truth. We need trained triage leadership at the door. We need cross-trained surgical emergency ICU respiratory and nursing teams. We need drills that do not end when people get uncomfortable. We need blood bank integration, family communication protocols, mental health, decompression, and after-action reviews that find failure without hunting for someone to humiliate. She looked around the table. If you want a hero, you will get one good night and a dozen bad ones after she burns out. If you want a system, build it. No one spoke. Then Senator Harlan's voice crackled from the screen. Federal preparedness funds are available for civilian trauma centers that integrate disaster medicine and military medical lessons. My office has already begun the application process. Cedar Gate qualifies as a pilot site. The chief financial officer sat back. That changed the room. Money always did. Cross looked at Claire, and something like pride moved across his face, brief and restrained. The vote was not unanimous, but it passed. By evening, Claire stood alone in an empty office on the surgical floor. Not a call room, an office. Small, windowless, barely furnished, but hers. On the desk lay a temporary ID badge. Dr. Allison Donovan. Trauma surgery. She picked it up. The name looked impossible. Then her pager sounded. Trauma alert. Multiple vehicle collision. ETA 7 minutes. Claire clipped the badge to her coat. For the first time in years, the name on her chest did not feel like a disguise. It felt like weight. It felt like duty. It felt like coming back. Allison Donovan did not hesitate when the pager sounded. The old part of her body moved first. Hand to badge, keys from the desk, phone into her coat pocket, breath steady before the mind could argue. She stepped out of the small office and into the surgical hallway where the night shift was already changing shape around the alert. Multiple vehicle collision. Estimated arrival 7 minutes. Rain tapped against the windows with the same patient rhythm Tacoma had kept since she arrived. The city outside was dark and wet, all headlights and black pavement. Somewhere beyond the hospital walls, twisted metal sat across the interstate. Someone was trapped. Someone was bleeding. Someone was trying to keep a stranger awake until help arrived. Allison moved faster. At the elevator, Dr. Ethan Rowe caught up with her, tying the back of his gown as he walked. "Highway crash," he said. "I saw. Dispatch says 7 patients, at least 2 critical. Then we prepare for 10. He nodded once. 3 months ago, he would have argued. 3 months ago, his pride would have arrived before his judgment. Now he reached for the trauma tablet and opened the incoming report. Fire department says 1 vehicle rolled under a delivery truck, 1 pregnant patient, 2 children, 1 teenage male trapped longest, possible crush injury. Allison stared at the elevator doors until they opened. "Call blood bank. Activate limited massive transfusion protocol now. Tell ICU to hold 2 beds. Respiratory at the trauma core. Pediatrics on standby." Rowe was already typing. "Yes, doctor." The elevator dropped. For a breath, Allison saw herself reflected in the metal doors. White coat, scrubs, hair tied back, eyes tired but present. The badge on her chest read, "Dr. Allison Donovan. Not borrowed, not hidden, not half true." The doors opened to the emergency department. Cedar Gate was already moving. That was the first sign that the hospital had changed. No one was running in circles. No one was shouting over someone else just to feel useful. Nurse Maya Ellison stood at the ambulance entrance with a triage board in one hand and a marker clipped to her collar. 2 residents cleared trauma bays. Respiratory therapists checked equipment. A blood cooler arrived before anyone had to ask twice. Trevor Ames stood beside the supply cart, face pale but focused. Allison saw his hands shake as he opened a chest tube tray. She walked toward him. "Trevor." He looked up. "I'm good. I did not ask if you were good." He swallowed. "I'm scared. Better answer." He let out a breath. She pointed toward the entrance. "You stay with Maya until she assigns you. You do not drift. You do not chase noise. You follow the tag." He nodded. "Yes, Dr. Donovan." The first ambulance backed into the bay. Maya raised her voice. "First patient coming in. Red tag." The doors burst open. A woman in her 30s was wheeled in on a stretcher, one hand pressed against her swollen abdomen, the other gripping the rail so tightly her knuckles were white. Blood streaked her forehead. Her eyes were wide and fixed on the ceiling. 32 years old, the paramedic reported. 28 weeks pregnant, restrained passenger. Hypotensive on scene, improved with fluids. Complaining of abdominal pain, possible placental abruption. Allison moved beside the stretcher. "What's your name?" The woman blinked. "Marissa." "Marissa. I'm Dr. Donovan. We're going to take care of you and your baby." "My husband," Marissa whispered. "He was driving." Allison looked at the paramedic. "Status." The paramedic's face tightened, still extricating. Marissa saw the answer before anyone spoke it. "No. No, please." Allison placed a hand on her shoulder firm enough to anchor her. "Look at me. Right now your job is breathing. My job is everything else." Marissa stared at her. Allison turned. "Bay 1. OB now. Ultrasound at bedside. 2 large bore IVs. Type and cross. Continuous fetal monitoring." Rowe stepped in beside her. "I can take Bay 1. Allison looked at him. "You have her." He nodded and moved with the team. The second ambulance arrived before the first bay doors closed. 2 children, siblings, 7 and 9. The younger had a broken arm and glass cuts across his face. The older was silent, too silent, with bruising across her chest from the seatbelt. Maya tagged the younger yellow and the older red. The mother was not with them. The girl looked at Allison as they rolled past. "Where's my mom?" Allison walked with the stretcher. "What's your name, Sophie? How old are you, Sophie, 9? I need you to do something brave for me." The girl's chin trembled. "I don't want to be brave. I know. Do it angry then. That works too." Sophie stared at her, confused enough to stop crying. Allison looked at the resident beside the stretcher. "Bay 2. Fast exam. Chest X-ray. Watch for pulmonary contusion. Keep her warm." The resident nodded. Allison leaned closer to Sophie. "I am going to check on your brother. Then I am coming back." Promise Allison had learned never to give the wrong promise. "I promise I will not forget you." That was one she could keep. The third patient arrived upright on the stretcher, fighting the oxygen mask. A firefighter. Off duty, according to the report. He had been driving behind the crash and ran into the rain to pull people from the wreckage before the first engine arrived. Now he was coughing blood into the mask. Possible inhalation blunt chest trauma, the paramedic said. He refused transport until we threatened to sedate him. The firefighter pulled the mask down. "There's a kid still in the blue sedan." Maya touched his shoulder. "We know." "No, you don't. He was talking when I left." He stopped before they cut me loose. Allison felt the temperature in the room drop. "What did he say?" The firefighter coughed. He asked if his dad was mad about the truck. Allison looked at Maya. Teenage male, Maya checked the board. Still inbound. Fire just freed him. Allison turned to Trevor. "You're with me when he arrives." His face changed. "Me, you." He nodded, fear and trust fighting in his eyes. Then the doors opened again. The teenage boy came in under a storm of voices. 16, maybe 17. Dark hair plastered to his forehead. Skin gray. Lips blue. Legs trapped for 30 minutes before extrication. Abdomen distended. Chest bruised. Blood pressure almost unreadable. A paramedic straddled the stretcher doing compressions while another squeezed the bag. "No pulse twice in the field," the medic shouted. "Got him back after 2 rounds. Lost pressure again at the door." Allison moved to the stretcher. "What's his name, Caleb Morris?" She looked at the boy's face. "Caleb, I'm Allison. Stay with me." His eyes did not open. She felt for a pulse, thread-like, almost gone. Bay 4. Now. The room tightened around them. This was the kind of patient that divided a trauma team into believers and witnesses. Some saw a body already leaving. Others saw a fight not finished yet. Allison saw both. They moved him into Bay 4. Airway tube placed in field. Confirm. Breath sounds decreased left. Needle decompression now. Chest tube tray. Trevor appeared beside her with the tray already open. His hands were still shaking. Allison looked at him. "Talk through it." He swallowed. 5th intercostal space, anterior to mid-axillary line. Prep, incise. Blunt dissect. Finger sweep. "Good. Do it." His eyes widened. "You want me to place it? I want you to save time. I am right here." He nodded. Once, then worked. Not graceful, not perfect, but correct. Air rushed out as the tube entered. The monitor flickered. Pulse improving, the nurse called. "For now," Allison said. "Blood pressure. 60 systolic. Pelvic binder. Massive transfusion. Call OR. He needs damage control surgery." Rowe appeared in the doorway. "Marissa is stabilizing." "OB has her." Allison did not look away from Caleb. "Take Bay 2. Sophie may crash. I'm on it." He left without hesitation. The system held. That was the second sign. No one waited for Allison to touch every patient. No one stood paralyzed because she was not in their room. They moved according to the plan they had built. Practiced, cursed, revised, and practiced again. Bay 1 held the pregnant woman. Bay 2 held the silent girl with bruised lungs. Bay 3 held the firefighter who did not want to stop being useful. Bay 4 held Caleb Morris, who was trying to die faster than they could work. Allison rode the stretcher up to the operating room with one hand holding pressure against his abdomen and the other braced against the rail. Trevor ran beside them, squeezing blood through the rapid infuser. Caleb's face looked impossibly young under the overhead lights. At the OR doors, Allison glanced at Trevor. "You stay." He looked startled. "In surgery? You started the fight. See it through." They scrubbed fast. Inside the OR, the lights came down. The sterile field opened. The monitors sang their thin, warning song. Allison cut. Blood rose immediately. Too much, too dark, too fast. Pack all quadrants. The team moved. Caleb's pressure dropped again. Anesthesia called numbers that no one wanted to hear. Allison's hands found damage layered on damage. Liver laceration, mesenteric tear, pelvic bleeding, a body crushed beyond one clean repair. She packed, clamped, called for more blood, shifted from one wound to the next. Trevor stood across from her, eyes huge above his mask. "Tell me where to hold. Here. Harder. Do not chase the blood. Hold the source." He pressed down. For a moment the bleeding slowed. The monitor steadied. Just a little. Enough to make hope dangerous. Allison worked faster. Rowe entered halfway through, scrubbed and ready. "Sophie is stable. Cross is watching the ED. Good. Take the left side. I need exposure." Rowe stepped in without pride. Together, they fought. For 22 minutes, Caleb Morris stayed barely alive. For 22 minutes, the operating room became the only world. Hands, gauze, blood, suction, numbers, breath. Then the bleeding found another path. The heart slowed. Anesthesia's voice dropped. "Pressure is gone. Compressions." They opened the chest. The motion pulled Allison backward through time so violently that the room shimmered. A 19-year-old on a table in Mosul. A boy under canvas. A father somewhere waiting. No, not now. She placed her hand around Caleb's heart and compressed. Small. Slippery. Failing. Epinephrine. Pushing. More blood. Infuser is emptying faster than blood bank can send. Get them moving. They are moving. The heart fluttered beneath her palm, then weakened, then stopped. No one spoke. Allison continued compressions. Rowe looked at the monitor, then at her. "Allison." She heard him. She did not stop. Trevor's voice cracked. "Maybe if we get more blood." Allison kept her hand around the heart. There was no rhythm. No response. No body left to return to. She closed her eyes for 1 second, then opened them. "Stop compressions." The room obeyed slowly, as if each person had to convince their own hands. Allison looked at the clock. Time of death, 2:17. The words entered the sterile air and stayed there. Trevor stepped back from the table. His gown was soaked. His face had gone white. I placed the chest tube too slow. No, if I had been faster. No. His eyes filled with tears. Allison removed her hands from the chest cavity and looked at him across the body of the boy they could not save. "You did your job. He still died." "Yes." The truth hurt because it had no mercy. She looked down at Caleb. He still died. No one moved. Then Rowe took a breath. "We need to close." Allison nodded. She stepped back and let him take over. In the scrub room, hot water ran over her hands. The blood did not want to leave. It never did not really. Skin released it before memory did. The drain carried the red away, but her hands still knew the shape of the boy's heart. Roe entered quietly. He stood at the next sink and began washing. For a while, there was only water. Then he said, "You did everything." "I know." The answer came too fast. Roe looked at her. "That sounded like a fact you do not believe." Allison stared at the drain. "I believe it." "Then why do you look like you are waiting for a verdict?" She turned off the water. "Because every dead patient leaves one." Dr. Cross appeared in the doorway. He looked older than he had an hour ago. "His parents are here." Allison closed her eyes. "Roe said I can go with you." She opened them. "No, I will go." Cross stepped aside. The family room was small and too warm. Someone had painted the walls a soft beige, as if grief might be less violent in neutral colors. There was a box of tissues on the table, a water pitcher no one ever drank from, and 2 chairs angled toward the couch where Caleb's parents sat. His mother stood when Allison entered. She knew. Mothers often knew before words. Allison removed her surgical cap. Mr. and Mrs. Morris. The father rose halfway, then sat again as if his legs could not finish the act. "I'm Dr. Donovan." The mother gripped her own hands. Where is Caleb? Allison sat across from them. Not above them. Not standing near the door. Not ready to escape. She sat. Caleb was critically injured in the crash. His chest, abdomen, and pelvis were badly damaged. We brought him to surgery as fast as we could. We gave blood. We repaired what we could reach. His injuries were too severe. The mother shook her head before the sentence finished. "No." Allison's voice stayed gentle. "Caleb died at 2:17. The father made a sound that was not a word. The mother folded forward as if something inside her had been cut. Allison stayed. No false comfort. No polished phrases. No God needed another angel. No, he did not suffer because she could not know that. No, he is in a better place because the only place his mother wanted him was home. She said the only thing she could say with full honesty. He was not alone. I was with him. My team was with him. We fought for him until there was no fight left to give. The mother sobbed into her hands. The father looked at Allison with eyes that needed someone to blame and knew it would not bring his son back. Did he say anything Allison thought of the firefighter's report? He asked about his father. The man's face broke. Allison continued. He wanted to know if you were angry about the truck. The father covered his mouth. No. God, no. Allison leaned forward. Then tell him that when you see him, some part of love hears what it needs to hear. She did not know if that was medically true. She knew it was human. The mother reached across the table blindly. Allison took her hand. The woman squeezed with desperate force. Allison stayed until the chaplain arrived. She stayed until the father could stand. She stayed until there was nothing left for her to do except carry the weight out with her. In the hallway, Cross waited. Not as chief, as witness. You stayed, he said. Allison looked toward the closed family room door. I did not used to. That is not true. She turned to him. In the OR, yes. In the tent, yes. In the fight, always. Afterward, I disappeared. From families. From my own. From myself. Cross said nothing. She looked down at the badge on her coat. Allison Donovan could operate under fire. She was less impressive when the room went quiet. Cross's face softened. Quiet is where most people lose. She breathed out. Then Maya came down the hall holding the trauma board. Marissa and the baby are stable. Sophie is going to ICU but breathing on her own. Her brother is headed to ortho. The firefighter is refusing to lie down, so I threatened restraints." Allison nodded. "Good." Maya's eyes moved over her face. "You need 5 minutes. I need the board." "You need 5 minutes." Allison almost argued. Then she saw the command in Maya's stare and accepted the paper cup of water she had not noticed in the nurse's hand. She drank. It tasted like plastic and mercy. 3 months later, Cedar Gate held its first full trauma readiness review in the largest conference room on the ground floor. The room was packed. Surgeons leaned against the walls. Emergency nurses sat on tables. Residents crowded near the back. Paramedics from Tacoma Fire stood in uniform with coffee cups in hand. Respiratory therapists, ICU, charge nurses, blood bank staff, administrators, and security supervisors filled every spare inch. No one looked untouched by the work. That was good. Untouched people did not belong in trauma. Dr. Cross stood at the front with a screen behind him showing outcome data from the past quarter. "Our response times have dropped by 41%, he said. "Time to blood product delivery is down by half. Trauma bay crowding during high-volume events has improved. We have completed 3 real-world multi-patient activations without a preventable systems failure." A murmur moved through the room. Not celebration, exactly. Recognition. Cross turned toward Allison, who stood near the side wall. This happened because a program became practice. Practice became habit. Habit became culture. Maya whispered from beside Allison. "He means you." Allison whispered back. "He means us." Maya smiled. Cross looked directly at Allison. "Dr. Donovan, say a few words." She hated that sentence. Every eye turned. For a moment, the old instinct rose again. Retreat, deflect, disappear. Then she saw Trevor near the back, standing straighter than he had months ago. Row beside the resident's arms, crossed face calm. Maya watching with that nurse's patience that could see through bone. Cross waiting without rescuing her from attention. Allison walked to the front. She did not bring notes. She looked at the room. "When I first came to Cedar Gate, I thought skill was something you carried alone." The room quieted. I was wrong. Rowe's eyes shifted slightly, but he did not look away. I had spent years believing the worst night of my life had taken my place in medicine. Then I came here and learned that a place is not given back all at once. It is earned in small ways. In drills, people take seriously. In nurses who correct doctors before mistakes become harm. In residents who admit they are scared and work anyway. In surgeons who learn that command is not the same as control. Trevor looked down, emotional and embarrassed. Allison continued. "We work in rooms where people meet the edge of their lives. Some come back, some do not. We do not get to choose that every time. What we choose is whether we are ready, whether we are honest, and whether we stand together when the room becomes louder than fear." No one moved. She let herself breathe. Cedar Gate is not stronger because one person knew what to do. It is stronger because all of you decided that knowing what to do should not belong to one person. That was enough. She stepped away from the front before applause could make her uncomfortable. It came anyway. Not thunderous. Better than that. Steady. Later that evening, Allison drove south toward Portland. The sky had cleared for once, leaving the highway washed clean beneath a pale, late-afternoon sun. The metal case sat on the passenger seat beside her, no longer wrapped in the old army shirt. The photograph rested on top. At her mother's house, the porch light was already on. Jack opened the door before she knocked. For a second, they simply looked at each other. He was older. Of course he was. So was she. Grief had put lines near his mouth. Relief put new ones near his eyes. "Allie," he said. She tried to answer. Could not. He pulled her into his arms. She held on. Not like a soldier. Not like a surgeon. Like a sister who had been gone too long and had finally run out of distance. Her mother was in the kitchen crying over a pot of soup she did not need to stir. "You are too thin," her mother said, which meant I thought I had lost you. I know Allison said, which meant I am sorry. They ate at the old table. Jack talked too much because someone had to. Her mother kept touching Allison's arm as if to make sure she stayed. No one asked for the whole story that night. That was a mercy Allison had not expected. After dinner, she carried the metal case to the living room and opened it. The badge, the citation, the photo. Her mother sat beside her. "Are you keeping those out now?" Allison looked at the faces in the photograph. Some alive, some gone. All real. Yes. Her mother wiped her eyes. Good. Allison touched the edge of the old Army medical badge. "I think I am done burying people who are still alive." Her mother placed a hand over hers. "Including you." Allison looked at her. This time she did not look away. "Including me." The next morning, a message waited on Allison's phone. It was from an unknown number. "Dr. Donovan, this is Benjamin Harlan. My father gave me your number. I have tried to write this message 100 times and failed everyone. My daughter wants to meet the doctor who saved her dad. I would like that too if you are ready." Allison sat on the edge of her childhood bed and read it twice. Outside the window, Portland rain moved through the trees. She typed slowly. "I would like that. Tell your daughter I know a lot about dinosaurs and pancakes." She almost deleted the second sentence. Then she sent it. At Cedar Gate the following week, life continued the way hospital life always did. No grand ending, no clean curtain, no world stopping to acknowledge that a person had returned to herself. A gallbladder came out. A stroke alert arrived. A homeless veteran refused treatment until Maya brought him coffee. Trevor placed a chest tube without freezing. Roe led a trauma bay and remembered to breathe before Allison had to remind him. Near midnight, Allison stood in the ambulance entrance watching rain fall under the bay lights. Cross stepped beside her. "You look settled?" She glanced at him. "That sounds dangerous." "It can be." They watched an ambulance roll past without stopping. Cross placed his hands in his coat pockets. "Do you ever miss it?" She knew what he meant. The war, the clarity, the terrible simplicity of knowing that everything was broken and still needing to move. "No," she said. Then after a moment, "Sometimes." Cross nodded. "That is honest. I miss who I was before I hated her." The words surprised her. Cross did not answer too quickly. "Do you hate her now?" Allison looked through the rain toward the city. "No." The answer was quiet, but it was true. Her pager sounded. "Trauma activation. 3 minutes out." Maya's voice rose from inside the doors. "Dr. Donovan, we have incoming." Allison turned. The emergency department lights opened before her. Nurses moved. Residents gathered. Roe looked up from the trauma board. Trevor pulled gloves from a box and passed a pair to the intern beside him. No one was waiting for a ghost. They were waiting for their surgeon. Allison stepped inside. "What do we have?" Maya walked beside her. 26-year-old male. Fall from height. Unstable vitals. Possible internal bleeding. Allison pulled on gloves. Bay 1. Blood ready. Ultrasound at bedside. "Let's move." The ambulance doors opened. Cold rain air rushed in. The stretcher came through. The work began again. Allison Donovan moved toward the patient, not running from the past, not hiding inside a borrowed name, not trying to prove that she deserved the space she occupied. She simply entered the room where someone needed her. And this time, when the monitors screamed and the doors swung shut behind her, she knew exactly who she was. A surgeon, a soldier, a healer. Home.